We're moving ahead to the future with Amazing Heroes number 74, cover date July 1st, 1985. I've spent so much time in 1983 doing these Amazing Heroes look-throughs, I had to jump ahead a little bit and find something a little new to conquer and see what they have going on in here. So let's see how the world of comics has changed in a couple of years. Well, first of all, Dalgoda, however you pronounce that, is now coming in color. It was the breakthrough hit of the time when it first came out, and now they're re-releasing it, I guess, in color. Here is another magazine that's out called New Age Comics, which is basically all the news and information you need on your favorite comics, the really good ones, all in one place. Basically, it's the independent comics publishers coming together to bring you what we'd call an advertorial, I suppose. A magazine you can buy for a mere 35 cents that would fill you in on what's going on in the best of independent comics. I'm showing you this now because we're going to get to it in a few more pages, because something happens there. You can see the spirits there, Dalgoda's there, that guy, I'm just blanking on, oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. He crossed over with Savage Dragon, and I'm blanking on his name right now. You know who he is. I'll put him up on the screen. Prince Valiant's there. So that's quite the crew. By the way, you could buy a full-page ad in this for only $120. Which back then I know was a lot of money, but it seems so little now. The first Jack Kirby Comics Industry Awards. Here you can cut out this page and let your voice be heard. That ran for 3 or 4 years before, well, there's a whole story there, and I hope to do a video on it someday because it's interesting. I just found it all out myself. There was some behind-the-scenes drama, and next thing you know, Jack Kirby didn't want to be known for these awards. They went away and came back as the Eisner Awards, and I think there was a secondary awards to go with it. For now, we'll hold off on that story for a little bit. Let's take a look at the news flashes. Here are the X-Men singing We Are the World. Why are they doing that? Because of the X-Men Benefit Special, which was going to have an Art Adams cover. I think this was this like the X-Men Against Hunger one-shot, I think they ended up calling it. But here they're calling it the X-Men Benefit Special. Again, for those of you not from the 80s, sending aid to Africa for the hunger issues, the famine issues over there was a big thing in the mid-80s, and so Marvel contributed with an X-Men special. Beginning in September, The Punisher will get his own 5-issue limited series written by Stephen Grant with Mike Zeck on art. A classic, still being reprinted to this day, and this is where it all began in 1985, September thereof. John Beatty on inks, and it's on Mando paper, because we do love our paper stocks here at Amazing Heroes. And if that wasn't big enough news for you, get a load of this one. 2 of DC's biggest British stars, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, have wrapped up negotiations to create a 12-issue Watchmen series. Despite statements made in other magazines, wonder what that story is, this is not the first collaboration between the two, since they worked together on this year's Superman Annual, for the man who has everything, as well as on several stories for the British market in years past. The book, Watchmen we're talking about again, which is scheduled to debut in early 1986, will examine potential ramifications of the actual existence of superheroes. That's putting it mildly, but yes, it will. And will kick off a heck of a year in comics, 1986. I know, it's kind of cool to see, history about to happen, and it just being sort of a one-paragraph notice here. As I continue to go through these issues of Amazing Heroes, I hope to see more interesting bits like that, maybe even a Watchmen number 1 review. If I find that, I for sure will bring that to you in one of these things. Neal Adams, Continuity Comics, have a bunch of ads in this issue. This is the Ultimate Man, Megalith. He definitely looks like a Neal Adams character. The news continues. It goes on and on. Lots of good stuff in here this week, this month, this bi-month, semi-month, whichever one it was. Here we go. That New Age Comics independent magazine I talked about before. Eclipse Comics has pulled its advertising out already. They refer to it as an advertising vehicle for independent comics publishers, really. Eclipse had taken 4 pages, which have now been picked up by Blackthorn Publishing, New Sirius Productions, Mirage Studios, and Ripoff Press. The first issue has garnered advanced orders of over 50,000 copies. That's pretty good. We mentioned the Jack Kirby Awards before. Here are the results of the Comics Buyer's Guide Awards for that year. Jim Shooter won for favorite editor. That seems very loaded. Chris Claremont won for favorite writer, beating out Alan Moore and Marv Wolfman. John Byrne beat out George Perez for favorite artist. New Teen Titans got favorite cover over Secret Wars #1. X-Men beat New Teen Titans as favorite comic. 2 Teen Titans stories got favorite story, including The Judas Contract and Who is Donna Troy. Well, you can't argue with them there. Those are classics. Swamp Thing's Anatomy Lesson actually followed up there. It came in second. And the favorite book award goes to Dazzler the movie. I'm sure that wasn't at all contentious. But Amazing Heroes magazine won for favorite publication about comics, as they say here, easily beating out Marvel Age and Comics Collector. Well, good for them. This is the main article for the issue, as shown on the cover. This is a preview of Dave Cockrum's Futurians. Again, another one of those mid to early 80s series I don't know much about. I've heard of course, a bunch. I think Rob Liefeld has mentioned them a few times when he's talked about Dave Cockrum. They have some interesting looking characters. He was always really good at character design and costume design especially. Check out this ad, by the way, in the middle of it. Tales of the Beanworld. Scope out what the Letterhacks are thinking about Beanworld. Yes, a publisher used Letterhacks in their ads. They actually published letters to the editor as an ad. As a 90s Letterhack myself, I find that awesome. I think I got quoted in a couple of previews magazines, but that was more as my editorial writer for CBR, not as a Letterhack. We got there eventually. That's all that counts. But that's pretty cool. And there's TM Maple right there in the middle. You can't have a letters column in the 80s without TM Maple. TM Maple. It's getting late. I can't talk anymore. Here is, speaking of Futurians, Mosquito, one of the less developed Futurians. That's funny. I'd say she's a solid C-cup at least. I'd say she's very developed. And keep on flipping through here. The relevance of underground comics on today's alternative publications. 2 things here. First, that's unreadable. Then this is a decade ahead of the point where Photoshop, Illustrator, whichever one it would be, would make every magazine in the 90s completely unreadable because they would print horrible color lettering on top of horrible, busy colored backgrounds on every page. Number 2, this is a topic I have absolutely no interest in. I'm sorry, I don't care about underground comics. I know some people are going to scream at me for that, but there's only so much in the world I can care about. Underground comics, not one of them. R.A. Jones doing the comics reviews here. He loves Dazzler just as much as all the other reviewers from Amazing Heroes did. As anyone who reads this column regularly knows, on my list of favorite characters, the Dazzler would rank right up there with Ralph the Wonder Dog. To say that this book has gone downhill would be too kind, for that at least implies some sort of direction. It has merely meandered from one plane of mediocrity to another. Man, I wish I could write that kind of put down. I'm just too nice. But in the end, he really liked this issue, mostly because Paul Chadwick did the art with Jackson Geis doing the inking, and so it looked good at least. So just to end it the way he began it, in both story and art, Dazzler number 38 shows a quantum leap in quality. Of course, the book was so far down, it had almost nowhere else to go but up. We're still not talking anywhere near top 10 caliber here, but at least now you can buy the book without feeling totally ashamed. Ouch. Just ouch. The next 2 reviews, Red Tornado number 1 and Justice League of America number 240, both written by a young writer named Kurt Busiek. How about that? And the Justice League issue inked by Tom Mandrake, who was in a DC New Talent showcase not that long ago. Check this one out, Savage Dragon fans. An ad for Megaton number 2. Vanguard right there front and center. Eric Larson drawing that cover. Man, I wish I were buying comics back then so I could have a copy of that one. Oh well. And that's it. They have some letters. Oh, a letter from E. Nelson Bridwell. Not his only letter to Amazing Heroes. It's always interesting that the letters column of Amazing Heroes often had some classic creators writing in, usually to correct the reviewers and complain that they didn't get a fair shake, but so it was there. Here's some stores they surveyed for the top 100 because on the final page, the top 100 comics from the stores that they checked out their sales with, and that's, this list of stores. This is where they get all their sales information. Moondog's Comics is on there. Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. The Comic Shop in Staten Island. Don't recognize too many other names there, but they got some average sales for those books. This is before, Diamond ran everything. X-Men was the top-ranked book, selling an average of 175 copies per store that was surveyed. That's pretty impressive. Number 2 was Crisis on Infinite Earths, number 3. John Byrne's Alpha Flight was selling 131 copies per store. New Mutants was in 6th at 110 copies. You had to get down to Moon Knight number 1 to get under the 100-copy line. And if you go all the way down to the bottom, sadly, Fraggle Rock number 2 comes in at 99th place, selling a mere 12 copies per store. Today, if Fraggle Rock sold 12 copies per store, it would be probably the number 1 book in comics. That might be a slight exaggeration. If that average worked out across 3,000 stores, it would be profitable. I just imagine in today's day and age, they'd only order the copies of Fraggle Rock they need for the pull lists of the people who really asked for it. Unless, of course, they put like a Scotty Young cover on it. I don't want to go down this road. Because, if they did, never mind. I'm not going to do it. There have been Fraggle Rock comics. Moving on, there's a back cover ad for Whisper by Stephen Grant and Rich Larson. That is Amazing Heroes from 1985. What will come next? I don't know. I've got books from the early 80s, the mid-80s, the late 80s, and a couple from the early 90s even. So in the comments below, let me know what era you're looking forward to most. I've got some of every one to talk about, and we'll get there given enough time.